Salmon populations have been in decline over the last few years, and that could be for a number of different reasons. There's a lot of theories that are out there. Global warming definitely being one that affects the temperatures actually of the rivers. The warming definitely affects how the salmon develop, and they can actually handle temperatures that are too warm. Habitat loss, deforestation, urban development into the habitat that the salmon actually spawn in. So there's a number of different contributing factors to why their populations have been declining. Seal populations have been thriving recently, and they are an animal that actually preys upon salmon. Lots of the estuaries and rivers are being developed for urban use and for industry use. So if we can help to restore some of the smaller streams and creek beds that salmon spawn in, that's a great place to start.
We've really got a group of dedicated people here at the hatchery, and we believe in trying to keep the Capilano River full of salmon, healthy salmon, right now and well into the future. Most people, I wouldn't say that they're ignorant, but they're unaware of the fact that the things that they do in their everyday life impact the salmon. If you talk to them face to face about those things, they would be concerned. You know, the fact that that drain to them may not look like it's the river. Well, somebody drains their pool or jacuzzi that has like a high chlorine count in it, and it could go into that stream and kill that fish.
Every river had a chum decline. We have found pregnant dead salmon that died before they spawned. Their spawning beds are gone. It's a gravel bar now, and they're poisoned from the pollution in the inlet. And we haven't ate anything out of that inlet now since like the late 70s. All our lives we have ate fish. I expressed my concerns about our river salmon. Where did they go?
Pollution is a huge one. If we can try to keep the environment a little bit cleaner, and just being aware of how our impact as people affects the environment. You'll see numbers of mosquito and insect populations greatly increase in areas where salmon are no longer returning. So if any one of them are taken out of the equation, it greatly impacts the animals in that area because the salmon fry will actually eat those. It helps control pest populations. They provide food for different animals like birds of prey, bears, different forest-dwelling animals. So as well as people. People are like to consume a lot of salmon as well, so that's going to affect us greatly if we don't have any coming back.
Eagles, bears, they're all waiting for the fish to come, and less fish coming in, everybody goes to somewhere else to eat because there was no more stocks.
Toxins actually do make their way into salmon quite a bit. There's a process of bioaccumulation. They're an animal that's mostly eaten as prey. Once that animal itself gets preyed upon, the concentration of toxins in their body becomes much greater. Different things like PCBs, a lot of them can be byproducts that are used in the industry or a type of plastic byproduct. Most of them are actually just different carcinogens.
Our runs have been dropping steadily, but this year our run topped out at around 10 to 15,000 chum, which is not very much. We set records for like high returns of up to 275,000 chum, which might not seem a lot to a lot of people, but if they looked at our river, they would know that 275,000 fish would be a lot. Sometimes the river is too warm because they're swimming up there in August. It happens in every system. It's the same thing. We don't go and harvest out of that system. If the numbers are up, maybe we might, but as a rule, since I've worked here, we have never went up there and harvested the fish out of the river for our own personal use. We allowed other parties to come up and harvest our chum and pink eggs. And when we found out that our stocks weren't coming back in the numbers we wanted them, we told them until the numbers do become satisfactory to us, we want to just leave them in that system.
We do raise 2 species of salmon, which we have been releasing. It's a hard area for salmon to return to because of this really busy coal harbor. If we don't have salmon that have returned, we need to acquire a brood stock from another hatchery. So the Capilano Salmon Hatchery has been great. They've allowed us to go and take a coho stock when we haven't had any salmon return. We go through the actual fertilization process. It's a pretty cool process to actually be able to do it. I've been lucky enough to be able to do that for the past couple of years, and if There's nothing quite as lovely as the feeling of salmon eggs. It's a pretty amazing thing to actually feel with your hands. But we split up our populations, so we're not keeping all of our fish in one pond, egg in one basket. And then we have an event here called Goodbye Salmon Fry that we usually run. We invite the public to come and take a salmon fry and release it into the ocean. Hopefully that's the one that makes it back.
The First Nations would have a ceremony for the first salmon, right, that came back. So, and putting back, and part of that ceremony was to put the bones and the carcass back into the river. All the fish that we do spawn that we can put back in the river, we put back in the river. And that's just part of smart fish culture and smart husbandry of the river.
I think salmon would ask us to respect them as much as we would respect ourselves. And I think that the salmon only require, or would only ask for the same things. If they could actually speak, I think salmon would ask for a healthy environment, good food, and have the opportunity to thrive and reproduce, which is, I think, basically all people really want out of life as well. Salmon are they're such an important species to us here in BC and in Canada. They're an iconic species for us. When people come here to Canada, when they think of coming here, the first thing people buy as tourists are maple syrup and salmons. It's really important for our environment as well as our culture as a people to be able to preserve them and to preserve their heritage. This is what this country has been built upon, especially on the West Coast here. They've been such an important species for First Nations peoples since the beginning of their communities. So it's really important that we take the energy and the time and the resources into preserving our natural salmon runs.